So first off, like to, talk briefly about the final report and any issues, changes, corrections, or mistakes that you've seen there. I don't know if we need to go through the whole thing, but if you've seen anything, there's probably a few typos and stuff like that scattered around. But is there anything you saw that we need to review and adjust before we finalize the report?
Well, it wasn't a mistake making you chair, I'll tell you that.
I was going to say the same thing. Amazing job, Ed. Really amazing.
Well, thank you.
A lot of work. Yep.
Roger,
Who
you
was he?
didn't do very much.
No, but no, by design. Yep.
So this is what happens when you retire and you have time to sit around. So. Okay, so everybody's happy with the report. I'm going to go through it one more time. I picked up one typo already, but I'll go through it one more time. And as noted, Marty did send out some adjustments. They were non-substantive. So I will include his wording changes in the document. So with that, the next issue that Kathy Monteo brought up is a request for us to take a look at the period for nomination papers to be circulated and filed. Right now, they're issued no sooner than 120 days before the election and must be back within 60 days. It turns out that not all communities use that same time frame, but many communities compete for the same printer to get the ballot printed. So there would be some advantage if we had the date moved up back a little bit further. So looking at what Kathy was talking about, I was suggesting the nomination papers would be available 135 days before the election and must be filed 75 days before the election. That adds basically 15 days, about 2 weeks to the period. It keeps the length of the period to collect signatures the same.
Okay.
How does that sound to folks?
So that just means picking them up a little bit earlier in the year and then giving them back in August instead of like a September 3rd.
Yeah, this came to light when this time around because Auburn's papers were out. Was it 2 weeks earlier than ours in Lewiston? And because everybody uses pretty much the same printer to print the ballots, it then gets to be a real crunch if everything hits them. And so they've got to really rush to get them out to the printer as quickly as possible. This just gives them a little bit more time. Okay, that's good. The next issue that came up is whether the charter currently permits or whether we should change anything in the charter to not permit the mayor to appoint himself to serve as the council representative to the school committee. As I was mentioning earlier, one part of the charter clearly says that the mayor is a part of the council. So he is a part of the council. And then another part, when it comes to the school committee, basically says that the mayor shall nominate and the council shall appoint someone from a member of the, forget the exact language, I should probably look it up. But it gives the impression you appoint a counselor, somebody who's a member of the council.
Right.
Could be anyone represented who's in any ward. So it kind of implies on the one hand that it could be any of them, but then it kind of also has an implication that it really should be one of the folks that represents the award. Dennis, do you have the exact language there? I can pull it up real quick if you wait a second.
Trying to beat you to it, but I bet you'll probably beat me.
Yeah, that's way back at the back of the charter. So hang on a second. I got to get to section, whatever it is. Oh no, I have to check section 5.
It's 5.01. I just found it.
Why don't you go ahead and read it?
Just trying to find the exact sentence here where it talks about the mayor.
Oh, I've got it here.
Okay.
So it talks about the composition of the school committee, and it goes, and one city council member to be nominated by the mayor and appointed by the city council from any ward. So, like I say, I think you could interpret that language either way. I've asked Marty for his opinion on whether the current language would allow the mayor to be appointed. I kind of think it would be a little awkward for the mayor to be appointed to the school committee, given
Agreed.
that the mayor's kind of the head of government in some senses. So if Marty feels it's necessary, I can just go ahead and clarify that. And just make it clear that it has to be appointed from among the councilors representing wards. Yes, Linda.
So did somebody bring this up specifically as a question that they want to try to do something, or because I'd be a little concerned about this.
Right. The question was raised
Okay.
by a member of the public.
Okay.
So I suspect it's something that's being out there being talked about.
Interesting. Because I mean, I would find that there might be some conflict, like, so the school committee chair has purview over setting the agenda for the school committee with the superintendent, right? And I would imagine that having the mayor there might be not, I mean, it's not the word intimidating I'm looking for, but it sort of is a very strong figure to be on the school committee and doing that representation. And also, I kind of feel like, is there a time, you know, the mayor has a specific role and duties as a mayor, and the person that is appointed to be the representative to the school committee as a city councilor should be that. I think it should be a city councilor and not the mayor. I think that would be the same thing as the school committee chair. You know, somebody being the city councilor that's appointed to serve on the school committee now wants to be the chair of the school committee too. Again, to me, that seems to be a conflict of interest and not enough different people having the say in a conversation and what needs to happen.
Absolutely. I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll wait to hear it back from Marty, and if we need to, we'll clarify that in our final recommendation.
Okay.
Let's see. The only other question that came up is, I think you picked up on Marty's comments on basically removing somebody from office, forfeiture of office, that we have to be careful when it comes to city council and school committee, because if we gave too much authority for those groups to remove their own elected members, that would probably kick us over into a charter revision. This would change some of the basic functions of the city. State law does allow other issues to be listed for reasons for forfeiture. So we have some flexibility if we wanted to add anything else to the list. Right now, let me get that up so I can read it to you. Right now, the basic forfeitures are if someone dies, resigns, if they move from the ward in which they are elected, and of course, we talked about changing that a little bit to make it as long as it's not in the last year. If they're convicted of a crime or offense of moral turpitude, if they're found to be in violation of section 8.04 of the charter, which is conflicts of interest, and if they fail to attend 3 consecutive regular meetings without being excused. Is there anything else we want to add to that list? The only thing I saw that was specifically listed in state law is disability or permanently disabled or incompetency. I'm a little concerned about incompetency. That's kind of a vague term.
Yeah, I don't like that one.
Yeah, I don't either.
And fully disabled, what does that mean? I mean, like
Permanently disabled. Yeah.
disabled? I would have concern about that too. I mean, my husband's permanently disabled, but he's cognitively capable of serving in a position if he was elected to it. So I would wonder where that would lead to also.
Okay. I just thought I'd bring it up since Marty mentioned it in his comments. So. Okay. You've all seen all of the documents. So what I'm anticipating the final report to look like is pretty much what you got in the PDF from Dottie. Be the cover letter, the report, which is the commentary and the actual changes. the memo that discusses staggered terms, since we're giving them both options,
Mhm.
the election every year and the extending terms to 4 years. The paper I did responding to all of the issues that elected officials and staff brought up, the public comments that Dottie put together, the full version of the charter marked up, and the memo we did on compensation of elected officials. So I thought that would be the full final report, all set with all of those.
Yep.
Now, Dennis, the question is, where do we go from here? What's the schedule going forward and what happens next? And what's our deadline for the council acting?
Before you give that, Dennis, can I throw one more thing out?
Sure.
Ed, in your introduction to the mayor and the current council, the introduction letter of the whole charter and the revisions, I think it would be good to give a little background that you and Roger gave us when we first started this as to when the last time it was reviewed and any changes were made, because you can't keep something in place like that for 10, 20, 30, 40 years and not expect some changes to it. So I just thought you might want to add a couple of lines in there in your introduction. And I'm sure you can do that on your own without our review, but
Yep,
just to give them a little background.
Okay, that's easy enough.
Good. In terms of the schedule, I guess going forward, so we're in our summer schedule, and unfortunately, Ed, they didn't space out the meetings all that well, and that was just council was trying to juggle some personal schedules themselves. So our next meeting is August 3rd, so that's coming up pretty fast. In order for us to have anything for council action or review, would need to be in, as you know, by next Wednesday. Into Heather, so that she can have it all in and ready to go. I'm happy to, if you think you can meet that deadline, Ed, that's really on you. If you can meet that deadline, then I'll work with her and we can have it and have it on the agenda for August 3rd. If not, then it would be the first meeting in September, which would be, give me 1 second, September 7th.
I think he can have it by the 3rd.
I can have the report. I can have the report done by the 3rd. If we're still going to have to, or somebody's going to have to go through this and put together the actual council orders and the wording of the questions and all of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And that can still be done in September with enough time to get it on the ballot.
I believe so. We could definitely confirm that tomorrow morning with Kathy if there's any timelines just to get that squared away with her. But I believe we could certainly, because I think we would end up working with Marty, city attorney, on some of that language yet anyway. And
Right.
so I think, we could certainly get started on that while you're on vacation and even maybe even work with you a little bit after. I know Heather would be she had mentioned working with you on some of the language, because I explained to them the next step in the process was this, having to put the out to the voters and that. And obviously you had experience with that work in 2010, so I was able to share that.
Yeah, back then, I think I actually wrote most of them and sent them over to Marty for him to review. So we
You
do
did,
have
that's
those.
what I found.
Yeah, we do have those templates, and I still have them on my computer. So one of the things then on the 3rd, that's when the report could go, and I would hope that on the 3rd, we'd have the opportunity for them to go through and kind of give us some preliminary indication of what they would be looking for actually putting on the ballot.
Mhm.
In particular, picking between the two options, if they're interested in either of those two options on staggered terms. Get some indication so we don't have on the 7th debate argument over version A or version B. At that point, we get some indication in advance.
That's what I was going to ask. That's what I was concerned about. So this gives, so if we present to city council on August 3rd, this gives them a chance to have some debate conversation around that in preparation to the language that would be put in for the ballot. That could be done in September. That would still give enough time.
Yes, and they would also have a chance to say, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to take this item. We don't want to.
Right.
We don't want to change the age of people who are eligible to be elected to office. we want
Right.
to leave that the way it is, or we really don't want to change that people elected from wards have to live in the ward for their full term.
Mhm.
So they'd have an opportunity to change anything that they wanted to or decide not to proceed on anything.
Okay.
Given the number of items, they also have the option of picking and choosing and saying, well, we'll split it up and not do it all in one election too. Last time we had 10 separate issues on the ballot. 9 of them passed, but that was a lot. And this time looks like we'd have probably something close to that again.
Yeah, that's a lot for people to digest.
It is.
Okay.
And I will just, say out if timing wise, we have the option of the June or May or June, referendum, the school vote next year if we didn't make the November deadlines, I suppose.
Right.
So that would be if we really ran into a challenge, I guess. But it does sound like we'll be okay with our timing at this point. I just need to confirm that with Kathy in terms of the balance.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I would assume that the current council could pass an order referring it to a special election after they're out of office, but
Well, that is an interesting question.
Yeah.
I think they could probably do that. Now, whether the next council could come in and cancel it is a different question. I used to always joke that the first thing a new council had to do, their first action, and when they were having their first meeting, is to either reaffirm or throw out everything the prior council did, so that staff would know where we were.
And we could have a whole brand new council this year. Like,
Yes, I guess there's going to be a lot of
except
change.
for one person, there could be major change. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Do you want us all there on the 3rd with you when you present to city council?
You're certainly all invited. That's going to be an in-person meeting, right, Dennis?
All right, we had our first bumpy return last Tuesday, so we're back in action now, face to face.
Yep.
And I'm back on Sunday, so I'll be here for the 3rd. So
Okay.
And the 3rd is a Tuesday, and what time's the meeting? 6?
The workshop would start at 6 p.m. So I would imagine this would be on the workshop for review and discussion. So somewhere between 6 and 6:30, this item should be coming up.
Okay.
okay, is there anything else we need to talk about? Oh, there is one question. I wrote the cover memo with signature blocks. That's probably difficult. So I might just list everybody's name. Does that sound reasonable? Rather than getting signatures.
Yeah.
And just to be sure here, I'm going to ask that somebody make a motion to approve the final report as presented with the adjustments we've talked about, so that we have an on the record vote. So if somebody would make that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And under the rules of electronic meetings, we have to have a roll call. So I'll start and go in order of what I see on my screen. So please say yay or nay. Patty,
Yay.
Roger,
Yay.
Linda,
Yay.
Jennifer,
Yay.
Francis,
Yay.
Steve.
What were the choices again?
Yay or nay.
Yay.
That's a yay. And that's a yay from me also. So it's unanimous. So I'll also include that in the cover sheet that the report has been unanimous, recommended by the committee. This has been great fun. It would have been more fun if we'd been able to do this in person.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think that's, given the restrictions, I think we did pretty well, and I appreciate everybody's attention on this. I know it took a lot of reading and trying to keep up with all of the various issues and changes and discussions. So I very much appreciate it. And if you can come on the 3rd, I'll see
Very
you then.
interesting.
If,
Indeed.
yeah, if not, we'll see each other someplace in the future.
All
So
right.
with that,
Yeah, for
motion
sure.
adjourned.
Thank you all. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
Nice
you.
work.
Good night.
Nice work. Good
Thank you,
night.
everybody.
And
Bye.
Dennis,
Bye.
I'll try to get something finalized before I leave.
Perfect.
Okay.
Sounds good. I'll send an email off now. Thanks, Ed. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay,
Hey, Dennis, thank you for everything you've done too. I know that
Thank
you're
you.
done and really appreciate all the work that you've done for the city. Honestly, from my heart. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Linda. And it's been a pleasure. And I'm not going anywhere. We'll hopefully have a chance to work together again, so.
Oh,
as
good.
we- I'll be
I'll just
local.
come bother you at your house. That's all right. Don't worry.
Stay local.
Thank
Hey.
you.
Thank you all.
Heather's getting all the help she can get.
Yeah.